Right, hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. My name is Steve Musker. I run a website called Musomuso, and I'm joined today by a very talented photographer who's worked with me in the past for a number of years. He's called Julian Baird, and we're going to talk about how to get into live music photography. Mr. Baird, are you there?
Yes, Steve, how's it going? Nice to see you again.
And you, yeah, how are you coping during these very trying times, man?
Yeah, not too bad. Feeling a bit cooped up in my office here. It's a bit frustrating not being able to go out and take photographs.
Exactly.
But, hopefully it'll be over soon.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. So we got together basically to talk about how to get into live music photography and the do's and don'ts, and just really to offer some tips. Obviously, you've been shooting live shows for me for about 7 or 8 years, and thought you'd be the best person to speak to, really. So, yeah, let's get the show on the road, basically. Let's talk about starting out. I mean, what's the first thing you need to do about starting out? I mean, where do you start, basically?
Well, I think, there's a perception, though, that when you start out in music photography, you're going to go straight to Wembley Stadium sometimes and shoot U2. I think what you really have to do is you have to learn to start small. Even in your kind of small city venues, you're unlikely to get straight in the door, particularly if you're not associated with any sort of press or publication.
Sure.
So really the idea is to start getting out there, start taking photographs, start building up a portfolio. And quite often the easiest way to get into gigs is to actually go to like a pub. Quite often pubs have open mic nights or they've got bands playing there. And in the pub owner, you'll be there anyway. You can go in there with your camera and start taking pictures. So really, to get started, get yourself into as many free venues as possible, free gigs, and start building up your portfolio by trying to take as many pictures as you can.
Yeah, good advice. I think that's really important as well, because the amount of photographers or would-be photographers that come to me and say, oh, can I shoot a show? The first question I have is, well, can you send me some of your work? And they then moan to me and say, well, I've shot no gigs before, so I've got no work. So how do I get the work without getting the photos? And it's all about building up a portfolio, I think, and getting your name out there. So, yeah, good idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of venues you can go to, like I say, pubs and stuff like that. And even if you go to some of the like the open festivals that you get during the summer and stuff like that, if you get yourself down the front, while you might not be in the pit, some of these festivals don't even have pits, but you can get yourself at the front and you can still get good photographs. So I think you have to do that kind of legwork first before you start looking at getting associated with venues and publications.
Exactly. So let's assume that we've contacted the manager of a pub then. He does an open mic night on a Monday night. He said to come down with your camera. What should I be doing when I'm down there? Let's talk about networking and getting to know people. What's the most important thing, do you think?
Well, you got to make contact with people. So part of being a live music photographer is your ability to communicate. Being good with the camera is actually only half the battle, really. You really need to be able to be good at networking and speak to people. So if you're going down to the pub, make sure the first thing you do is you get in the door, you go and see the bar manager or the owner, introduce yourself, tell them what you're going to be doing, where you're going to be doing it, just to give him a good feel, and then immediately say, look, I'll take these pictures and I'll send them across to you as soon as I finish. That's really important as well. And also, if you can get a chance before the band or the artist goes on stage, go and say hello to them. Most of these people that are playing in pubs and bars, they want to speak to people, and if you're there saying, oh, I'd like to take some pictures of you, they're normally very receptive. And the good thing about is if you introduce yourself to the performer or the artist or the band, and they know what you look like and they know where you're going to be, quite often they'll play it up to the camera, and you want that kind of interaction, that relationship with the artist. So when they're doing something cool with a guitar or something like that, they might well turn around and look at you and look into the camera, and that's how you can get yourself a really cool shot.
Wise words. I think it's really, really important to get in with the venue, get in with the manager, get in with the door staff and the bar staff and things like that. And as you say, share images. Talk to the bands beforehand, tell them why you're there. Give them your business card if you've got one. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But also share the images. Share them with the venue. Make sure they can put them on their social media. They can start advertising their open mic night using a few of your images, and make sure they credit you for the images on there. It's all going to help about getting your portfolio boosted and really getting your name around the local scene as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So should I just be looking then, as a would-be photographer, should I just be looking at covering live music shows? What other events are there out there that I can probably get involved in?
That's a great question, Steve. I think there are lots of different ways to get your name out there and develop your portfolios. One of the things that we do almost on an annual basis. We go to and cover Record Store Day, don't we?
Indeed.
So, I mean, that's really good because you're widening your portfolio. You're going to get different types of shot. You're going to get shots from people that are fans of music. But quite often, as you know, that when you go to Record Store Day, some of the record stores actually have bands there as well. You get little acoustic sets.
Yeah, that's right.
So, there's always an opportunity there to actually meet bands and artists, and again, building those relationships, like say having some business cards, examples of your pictures that you can, carry them on your phone. Make sure you've got like a small portfolio of images on your phone so you can show them to the band.
Yeah.
I think we've also met band management there at the Record Store Days, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
And being able, again, being able to introduce yourself, share your work. So you can widen your portfolio by going to things like Record Store Day, but you can also network and meet management as well, which is also, I think we'll talk more about management later, but they're critically important to your success as a live music photographer.
Absolutely, and certainly the further you go up the chain, I mean, we've shot bands in pubs, we've shot bands in small local venues around Exeter. Yeah. We've shot bands at major festivals around the UK as well, and it's, as you say, the further up the chain you go, basically, it's almost the harder it is to get into the pit, get into the venues and things like that. But yeah, we'll talk more about management in just a moment. So I've got a next section, Julian, which is called blog. It sounds like something up your streaks. I know you're very keen on blogging your videos and your other shots that you do, basically. Why is blogging so important in the world of live music photography?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you want to... I think it goes back to having a website. I think, we all like to have... It's good to have social media presence like Facebook and Instagram. But bear in mind, these aren't your home. You don't have real control over these platforms. Algorithms change and your visibility can change overnight. So I think it's critically important to have a website.
Yeah.
Because that's something you can control, and you've always got a home for your work.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So, and what a blog does is, you're not always going to be posting. You're going to have a portfolio section on your website, but you're not always going to be updating that. You don't always get portfolio class shots every time you go out and shoot. So you need to keep your website fresh and up to date, and a blog is a great way of doing that. It keeps the Google search engine happy because it sees your website constantly updating. Yeah. But it's also a great way to share your images very quickly. So what I tend to do is I'll go to a gig one evening, come back, process the photographs, and try and post them up on my blog the very next day, and then send out all the links to management, venue owners, the gig, and the band. So it's a really good way to share your images quickly, and you can tell little stories and give a bit more information about the gig itself.
The show,
so it's just that readiness and that speediness in which you can publish images and keep your website up to date.
I guess also, as you say about having a website, it's yours. It's always up to date, or as up to date as you want it to be, basically. But it's always a home, and people will get drawn to it. And the more you publish the photos, the more you blog about it, the more word of mouth's going to get round, basically, and then you're going to get more traffic to your site, driven from those sort of things. So I think it's really important.
So what I tend to do is, I'll maybe capture, I'll publish maybe 3 or 4 images per artist that I might capture in an evening. I'll maybe just post one of them on Twitter and Facebook, saying, "No, this is an image I took of X band. If you want to see more, come over to my website." So you always want to drive traffic to your website. And like I say, a blog is a great way of keeping that website up to date.
Exactly. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is more about the sort of physical. Let's assume you're at a show, basically. I know your DSLR is quite an advanced model, and I don't know if I have the facility on mine, but we talked before about live sharing, about publishing photos whilst you're at the show, even while the band is still on the stage. I mean, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's become more of a common feature in modern cameras, both in digital SLRs and mirrorless cameras, even down to your point-and-shoot cameras.
Sure.
A lot of the time, it's possible to wirelessly transfer an image straight from your camera to your mobile phone. So what I like to do is, while I'm still at the gig, I'll go in there for my first 3 songs, grab some shots, I'll pick a good one out, I'll transfer it to my phone, I'll do a little bit of rough editing. Now, I use a couple of tools to do that. I use Google Snapseed and Adobe Lightroom on the mobile. Do just a very quick edit, export it out, and then I post it straight on Twitter. So by the time the band, so you do your first 3 songs, you do your editing, by the time the band actually comes off stage, they've already got a picture of themselves on Twitter, on Facebook, and they're already tagged. So they grab their phones out and go, God, that was only 5 minutes ago. And it just adds that little bit of impact to, well, who is that guy? He's cool. You know, he got my picture out even before I got off stage. So
before we finished.
If you can, it's well worth doing. I mean, there's always a bit of a gap. You do your first 3 songs, the band finishes a set, so you've got another probably about 30, 40 minutes to do anyway. You can sit about doing not a lot, or you can use that time to be proactive and get your image, get at least one image out straight away. And it's also good if you've got that image and you find the band manager or the venue owner goes, oh look, this shot's already up.
That's right.
So when you do come to doing this kind of social media sharing, always tag the band. If you can tag, you know who the management is, tag them as well, and tag the venue. Make sure they're all included, and then go around and do a bit of self-promotion.
Yeah, I remember a night at I think it was at the Lemon Grove in Exeter, we were shooting a band. I can't remember which band it was, but they were quite a big band. And I remember getting my phone out and sort of, you know, you've obviously tweeted it over to me or put it on Instagram, and I'd shared it on my socials. And I showed the manager, or the tour manager, and he couldn't believe it. He was saying, well, how have you got that up there so quick? Is that from tonight? You know, and we were like, yeah, we took the photo half an hour ago. It's been up on there. We've got 35 likes already, you know, it's going around. And even showing people in the crowd walking along the front row, sort of giving the business cards out and sort of showing them the photo. And then, you know, they can certainly tune in and see some live pictures of the show that they've just attended, basically. So, yeah, really good idea. Okay, great advice so far, Julian. Thanks very much for your answers on these. I want to talk a bit more about equipment. What sort of camera do I need to get started? Do I need to go out and spend $5,000 on a Nikon D850 or something like that, or what's out there? What's available?
I mean, I think live music photography is one of those things where gear can matter, but not necessarily in the way that you might expect. No, you don't need to go out and spend $6,000 on the latest flagship digital SLR. Yeah. What you're really looking to do is to get equipment that works well in low light. That's almost all modern digital cameras now. They all can shoot virtually in the dark. Yeah. So, you know, buying the latest camera isn't necessarily the prerequisite to getting good shots. I mean, I spent the first sort of 3 or 4 years shooting with a single lens, and it was I think a 35mm if you're talking full frame terms, or 50mm if you've got a crop camera. But it's just a reasonably inexpensive lens. It's an f1.8 50mm or 35mm. Right. And that lets lots of light in. Okay, you've got fixed focal length. Yeah. But those lenses can be picked up for, you know, a couple of £100. And they're really good because they've got a nice wide open aperture that let lots of light in, and that's really gonna help your photography. So no, you don't need to go out and buy a really expensive camera and a really expensive bit of lens. You just want something sort of reasonably inexpensive and fast. The other thing you can do is, when I was just literally only had my 35mm 1.8 lens, if I was going to a bigger venue and I was going down to Plymouth or at a festival, renting a lens is a very good option. I've rented a 24-70 f2.8 and a 70-200 f2.8 long before I even made the decision to purchase them, because I wasn't in the type of venues that demanded that kind of focal length and that high quality glass. Not often enough. So really do consider, it's quite good to have these high quality bits of glass, but if you're not going to use it a lot, or you want to try it out to see if it's going to fit your photography and the types of venue that you're going to, rent one. You know, you can pick them up to reasonably inexpensive for the weekend. And so if you're only doing 3 or 4 festivals a year, or even a couple, I'd go down rather than spending £2,000 or £3,000 on a very expensive lens, rent one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Talking about equipment as well, I guess it's key that whatever camera you've got, basically, you learn how to use it. You know, what do the buttons do? You don't want to be stood in the pit, I'll say at a major festival or something like that, but shooting a really good A-lister band, fiddling around with your buttons, thinking, oh no, which button do I need to change the ISO settings and things like that on there. You really need to know your camera inside out and back to front, don't you? Yeah,
that's a great point, Steve. You need to be able to use your camera blind, essentially. So you really need to spend some time practicing changing things like ISO, aperture, shutter speed, focusing modes, all that kind of stuff. You need to be able to do it blind, because like you say, you could be in a pit where it could be dark, so you might not actually be able to see the buttons very clearly. Exactly. And you don't want to be squinting behind your camera or getting a torch and trying to figure out, because I tell you what, you'll be missing the action. Something will be happening, and you'll have missed it because you'll be at the back looking away. So I very quick made me doing live music photography made me a better photographer because I really got to know my camera. So I can hold the camera up to my face and I can adjust aperture, shutter speed, and ISO all without looking at the camera, and I can change the focusing mode so I know where all my fingers need to be for all the buttons. So it's absolutely critically important because you will miss a moment and then you'll be kicking yourself.
Exactly. No, that's good advice there. Yeah. So do heed this advice. It'll get you a long way in the live music photography scene. Believe us, we've experienced it in the past, haven't we, Julian? And it's been quite painful at times. But there we go. I often get asked as well, people come to me and say, well, I've been offered a slot at a festival, I've been offered a photo pass, but I need a publication, I need an outlet for my photos to be published, basically. And that's understandable, because obviously if you're hosting a festival and you've got, say, 20 pit passes, you don't want to be giving it to little Jenny who's just got a first point and click and she just wants to get some photos to show her friends on Facebook. So how do you go about sort of partnering? I mean, you did exactly the same with me. Tell me your story. How did you go about collaborating with me and getting involved in live music photography?
Yeah, I mean, getting into venues and festivals, like you say, by yourself, just as a photographer, is quite hard unless you're really an established photographer. It's almost always down to, are you associated with press? That's what they're looking for. Because you're right, they don't want to just give out a valuable pit pass to someone who's not going to have any, or take those photos and have any reach with them.
Sure.
So my story was with you. I mean, you run the musomuso website.
That's right.
And you do all the writing, the chief writing officer. And I gave you a value proposition. I said, look, you've got some great content there. You're going out and reviewing these gigs, but what you need is pictures. They really help to tell the story. So through my association with the musomuso website, that opened all sorts of doors for me to get into. So you can look at proper press outlets. So you got the papers, but typically they're sending their own staff. So I think in today's world it's much easier, particularly when you're starting out, to try and associate yourself with some online publications, of which there are quite a lot. There's musomuso. Even look at some of the local student press papers and stuff. They're typically looking for stuff. So it's about associating yourself with people that already have the credentials about producing content.
Yeah, and I guess as well that boils down to the working with venues and things like that, going backwards. Offering to shoot photos for them and becoming almost like a resident photographer. I guess that's a good starting point as well, isn't it? That certainly opens a few doors for you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do all these things that we've just been talking about, people get to know you, and the venues themselves are looking for photographs. They want to be able to promote their venue,
of course,
both in terms of ticket sales, but also actually attracting bands to come and play at their venue. So it's all this sort of big circle of life, really. So you can become associated with a particular venue.
No, exactly. So leads me on to the next point then, Julian. So I've been shooting for a couple of years. Let's imagine. I've shot a few major gigs. I've shot a few festivals on there. All this gear is costing me a lot of money. How do I go about getting paid for my photography? Where do I sell my images and things like that? I mean, you're probably the best person to tell
I'm
me.
going to send you an invoice today, Steve, so you can get that paid if you don't mind.
Don't worry.
That'd be great. I think it's about 3 years overdue, isn't it?
That was about 7 years overdue, I think.
Yeah, I mean, getting paid is really hard. I mean, particularly when you're starting out and you're doing the pubs and even the smaller local venues, the chances of you getting paid are actually quite slim.
Yeah.
It's all about those relationships. I mean, most of the time, getting paid is about associating yourself with bands and building up those relationships and becoming trusted. So I still share a lot of my images for free. I put them on Facebook and I share them out. I'm not expecting to get money for them. The only time I tend to ask for money is when the band or the artist or the venue will actually want to use it for commercial purposes. I think, if they're wanting to put on a t-shirt or a flyer to sell images, I think that's when you start looking at charging. I think you're unlikely to probably get paid to go to the gig and take pictures unless the band's taking you on tour. So really, give the images out for free. Don't expect to get paid early on. But if the band wants to use it for commercial purposes or anything like that, that's when you start to look at charging for your images. Because if they're going to make money off it, then you should make money off it as well.
Of course you will, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know working with promoters in the past, they've asked us to shoot certain shows. Quite rightfully, we've gone back saying, well, okay, it's a night's work basically for 2 people. Yeah, we need X amount to cover expenses, buy some food, cover petrol and things like that. But I'm guessing as well, as you get more established with bands and things, you could possibly open the doors with sort of promo shoots and things like that, working with the management and trying to get them involved in that kind of thing. Sort of images and photography that they can use socially and they can use on advertising posters and things like that. So...
yeah, and as you develop these relationships with the band, you're going to get more access to them as well. But like any relationship, it takes time to build. So you will get to say, well, I'm going to be recording a new track. Do you want to come in and do some behind the scenes shots and stuff that they can use? But that all takes time. That's going to be an invite thing most of the time. So, these relationships develop over years, not days and weeks.
No, of course, yeah. As I say, well, we're old hands. I mean, we've shot some howlers of shows in the past, and we've shot some absolutely, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment before as our finishing part. But so let's talk about being in the pit, being a photographer, going around the venues. What sort of etiquette do I need then, Julian? Do I just barge in, basically I've got my photo pass, boot everyone else out the way, get my camera out and get on with it? Is there a certain etiquette that we need to adhere to?
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, it all boils down to relationships and being a people person. As I said right at the top of this video, your ability to communicate and be friendly is absolutely critical for this industry. So no matter, as soon as you get into the venue, find it, if you know the manager, even if he's busy, just say it, give him a quick wave, just let him know that you're there. He knows that you're there. You don't need to go into some big conversation. Find out who the security staff are. I mean, we've been to some venues so many times. We're first in terms of the security staff. They just wave us on and go there, and we give them a wave.
Normally an exchange for a bag of Haribo,
yeah. You bribe them with sweets, don't you? So that if you go up to the pit, and you say, you show me a pit pass, say who you are, I'm here taking pictures, I'm authorised to be here. Quick shake of the hand or something like that, just be a person, and then they know who you are. So when they see you wandering about, they're not getting, that's Steve, or that's Joe, and he's all right, And while it won't give you access to areas that you're not supposed to have access, it will just make that transition from being on the public side of stuff through to the pit a whole lot easier. So again, building relationships, introducing who you are, going to the venue owner, the security staff, the band management, say hello to as many people as you can before even the gig starts, where possible.
And I read an interesting story once. It's quite a funny story, actually. But photographer goes into a venue, the security guard sees them. You want to be the first person to open your mouth and introduce yourself. What you don't want is the security staff asking who you are, what you're doing there. Are you allowed to be there, basically? Be confident. Be upfront. Go up to them, as you say, introduce yourself, tell them who you are, give them a business card, show them your photo pass, tell them what you're doing and how you're doing it, and also ask them if there are any restrictions. Is it the first 3 songs only? Can I shoot in the pit all night? Where was it? I think we were shooting at Beautiful Days Festival a couple of years ago, and the main act, Levelers, on a Sunday night, they have these paper cannons that go off. But when do they go off? Is it the first song? Is it the 5th song? Are we going to get our heads blown off if we're in the wrong place at the wrong time? Find out that information, basically, and that can help you out majorly going forward. But
the security staff are an amazing source of information, and you're absolutely right. You don't want to be in the back foot. You don't want them thinking, who's that guy?
No, exactly.
You want to know, I know who that is, because the amount of tips and bits of information that I've got have been phenomenal. I say, by the way, I saw these guys the other week at the other festival, and he does this really cool thing at the second track. Keep an eye out for. Yes, they are there to protect everyone and make sure the venue's secure, but they know a lot of these guys, so being on the right side of them is really, really important.
Exactly.
And if they do tell you stuff, and maybe you've heard it 57 times before, like 3-song rule, no flash, just say, great, thanks for letting me know.
Exactly.
Don't go, I already knew that. It's like, it doesn't matter. They're trying to do their job, you're trying to do your job, and it will go a whole lot easier if everyone's friends.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I think also the golden rule is talk to other photographers. You know, you're not there competing against each other. You may be shooting for rival magazines or websites or whatever, but, you know, get to know each other, because if they can't shoot a show and they've been offered a pass, you never know. They might just be able to pass it on to you and just change their name on the registration papers and get you in somewhere that you wouldn't have dreamt of going before. So,
well, and this is it, again, about the networking and the relationships, because they might have shot the same band at a different festival 2 weeks before, and you might, you know, if you're pals with these guys, oh, by the way, again, look out for song number 2. He jumps up and does the guitar thing. And besides, festivals are long old days, you know, as you know. It can be quite lonely, because you've only got these 3 minutes of action every hour or so.
That's right.
So actually having someone to talk to and chat and have a coffee with, you know, it just makes the whole experience a bit more pleasurable.
No, exactly. So before we part company, Julian, I just wanted to not so much put you on the spot, but I remember years ago, I think it was 2016, and we were sat there dreaming, thinking, what are we going to do this year? Because we always set ourselves a goal of shooting a big festival or a big event every year. And this was the year that Radio 1 were bringing the big weekend down to Powderham, in just outside of Exeter. And I think you dared me one night over a couple of beers and said, you know, wouldn't it be good if we can get a photo pass? I said, oh, mate, forget it. You know, this is agency photographers from all over the world shooting for Getty and things like that. We're not going to get in. Anyway, I'd done a bit of work with a Hyde Park Radio 2 event up in London a few years before. And I contacted some of the press team. They put me onto the press team that were working the big weekend. And yeah, I think I got a phone call one morning saying you've got exactly 10 minutes to sell your story as to why we should give you a pit pass. And I don't know what happened. I think it was an act of God or something like that. But half an hour later, I had an email from Sarah, someone on BBC Press, saying, right, you got a photo pass for the 2 days. And that's where you came in, wasn't it? Tell us a bit about that event.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Radio 1 Big Weekend is probably one of the highlights of everything that I've shot, and it's a whole different world once you get up to, you know, having the journey that we kind of shared together from, you know, really small venues, you know, caverns and stuff like that, all the way up to Radio 1 Big Weekend. Very different experience. I remember being in the queue for the press office to get my press pass. And there's some, you know, obviously some very well travelled, established professional photographers, like you say, they're probably shooting for Getty and for the papers. In fact, they were shooting for the papers, because I was there the next day in the Sunday in the press tent, and they're going, oh, there's my picture in the sun. It's a whole different world. But yeah, there was a photographer there standing in the queue, complaining that he had to go to Cannes and he was shooting Johnny Depp again, you know. Just like, you know, so boring. I'd shoot Johnny Depp. No, I've got to go here. So it's just like it was a very different experience, but it was great because we had a proper press tent. I mean, when you go to festivals, a lot of the time there's no facilities there for you. You're pretty self-sufficient. But it was good at the Radio 1 weekend with a press tent. And we got ferried around in golf buggies as well in between the stages. It was highly organised, you know. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, no, indeed, and one to certainly look up to. As I say, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. We've shot. I hate to use the term the toilet circuit, but you know, we started right from the bottom, basically shooting little local boutique festivals around Devon and Cornwall. You know, worked our way up to something like that. And how long does that take? About 7 years.
But 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, well, I suppose
it's been a long, it's a long journey, and this is the thing you've got to, when you're starting right out, you've got to set your expectations. You know, the relationships that we've built up and the portfolio, it does take time.
Oh, it does.
Years. It's a long old process. So, but you know, we do it because we love it. That's the bottom line. You know, we love going to the gigs. We both love music. I love capturing the photographs, and I think, you know, it's that passion that keeps us going. And then you often get this kind of rare treat where you get to go and see, you know, a big festival or a big band. But that's because we've got the content behind us. We've got the writing, we've got the pictures, we've got credibility. I think, and that has to be earned.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't come overnight. It certainly takes time. But Julian, thanks so much for your time. It's been great to chat to you. Thanks for the advice. Hopefully, people will watch this and learn some bits and pieces and nuggets that they can take away and test out in their sort of camera or photography journey. Hopefully, move up the ladder, you know, very, very quickly as they do so. have we got any additional reading? I know on your blog a couple of years ago you put some very good pieces out about festival shooting and things like that. Have you got the URLs or the links to them? Or where can you find
that's a good point. It actually wasn't on my blog. It was actually on another photography website. But I've got the links for those. I think it's some tips about starting out in gig photography. A lot of things that we covered about here, and also I think it was 25 tips for shooting a festival as well. I'll include some. There'll be some links in the video description for this one, I guess. I'll send them over to you. Excellent. And you can include those so people can have a look at those.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much. I think the bottom line is basically just have fun, enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a hobby. It can turn into a real passion. It can turn into a living. You know, for certain people, if you've got the right sort of approach on there and things like that. But be polite, you know, be friendly, be confident, and most of all, just have fun with photography, and you'll go a long way.
Yeah, good advice.
Thanks very much indeed, Julian.
Nice to talk to you. Cheers, Steve.
See you soon. Take care.